Well, in this video, I'm going to photograph an unexpected architectural find. I'll show you how I process one of the images in Photoshop. Well, good morning. I was driving through Connecticut this morning on the way to see my dad, who had a big birthday yesterday. I guess every birthday at his age is pretty big. And took my camera with me, just looking for some things to shoot. And out of the corner of my eye, as I was driving on the highway, I noticed this building in back of me. I thought it looked pretty cool, so I pulled off the highway, found it, and I'm gonna try to take some shots here. What I like about this building are the kind of clean lines, and I like the color as well. I typically shoot architectural images in black and white, and I'm sure I'll try this in black and white, but that orangey red rusty color could add something to the image as well. So it turns out this building is a school. Clearly things are not in session. I'll put the name of it on the screen. I've never heard of it, I've never seen the building before, and I've driven by here hundreds of times probably. So sometimes you get surprised. So we got some nice puffy clouds in the sky, and they're moving pretty nicely across the sky. So I'm gonna do a long exposure. I'm gonna put on my 10-stop neutral density filter. I can go out to about 30 seconds, and that will capture some of those streaking clouds in the sky. Hey, by the way, I'd love to see some of your photos as well. It doesn't have to be architectural, so if you post your stuff, say on Instagram, why don't you put your Instagram name in the comments down below, and I'll make sure I give it a look. Well, I'm just kind of moving down the building a little bit just to get different perspectives. The sky keeps changing and the light keeps changing, which makes it challenging but interesting. So I'll take some shots from this angle as well. So I kind of like this angle here. I've got the very sleek metallic part of the building, the red, orangey, rusty color, and then the grid here, very modern, also sleek looking with these great lines and contrast with the windows. So I'm trying to capture all of this with my wide angle lens right now. So one issue I have is the sky, at least shooting from this angle, the sky is much brighter than this building. And so what I'm gonna do is take two shots, one kind of exposing for the sky, the other one going out a longer exposure, which will expose for the building. And then if I want to, I can merge them together in Photoshop. I may not have to, but at least I'll give myself the option. Just one tip when you're doing a long exposure using a neutral density filter, make sure you focus beforehand, lock that focus, then you put the ND filter on, because the camera won't be able to see through that dark lens and won't be able to focus after. I just made that mistake, that's why I'm bringing it up. I've done it before and I'm sure I'll do it again. I'm a little surprised someone from security hasn't come out and chase me away. There are cameras out here, And my luck, usually there's someone kicking me out of a space or a building. But so far, so good. Alright, got some decent shots. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. If you're into Photoshop, stick around. I will jump into my computer right now and show you how I process one of these images in Photoshop. Okay, well, it ended up being a fun morning, and I had a great time with my dad, and I am back home now on my computer, and I want to do, I guess, a couple of images. The first one is this one. I want to show you how I turn this image into this image. I'm in Photoshop now. I did some work in Lightroom already with the colors on the left side of the image. In fact, I can even show you. If I go over to Lightroom, this is the image, and I really just use the HSL sliders to increase the saturation of both the rust and the aqua. And so use the color picker here, and pulling up increases saturation, pulling down decreases. But given that that's the only aqua or the only rust in the image, it really isolates it. And same thing with the aqua in the windows. Pulling down, this is kind of what it looked like initially. Pulling up, I can make that more saturated, and I do like the complementary colors between the aqua and the rust. And that's what I did in Lightroom. I pulled up the shadows a little bit, maybe reduced the highlights a bit, and I brought it over to Photoshop. And I didn't do too much, but what I did do first was work on the sky. I want that sky to be more dramatic, more contrasty, and a bit darker. I've already made a number of selections. And to make the selections, I just used the polygonal lasso tool. These are straight lines. It was really easy to do. I zoom in, I get close to that line and just outline the selection. And I save it by going up to Select and then Save Selection, and I think of a name for it. So let's look at the sky. If I go to Load Selection and choose Sky, you can see my selection there. All I want to do is use a curves adjustment layer, and again I want to increase contrast and darken it a bit so I can pull down on the left side, which is going to darken really everything to some extent, but certainly the darker parts of the selection. So pull that down and pull up on the right just to bump up those highlights a bit. And so you can see what I did. I mean, it's pretty different, pretty dramatic, and it makes the building pop a little bit more too. Next thing I did, this panel on the right, this silver panel, it looks like there's a bit of a gradient as it gets a little brighter up towards the right corner. And I'm going to emphasize that more. So if I load the selection right panel, I'm choosing that part of the building. I'm going to choose a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to pull up, and that will brighten the entire selection. I then can reselect it, choose a gradient tool on the left, make sure it's a linear gradient tool. The foreground is white, and I can pull down here, and you'll see that upper right becomes a little bit brighter. And then I can emphasize that a little bit more if I wanted to by choosing another curves adjustment layer, pulling down, which is going to darken the whole selection, but then reselecting. I got my gradient tool selected, this time pulling up from the left, and you'll see, you can play with it a bit, but you get that nice gradient. So here's the before for this part of the building, and here's the after. Last thing I did, I'm going to deselect that by hitting Command D. I'm on a Mac. Last part of the building I worked with was kind of that bright, I call it broadside, but the stuff where the light is really hitting it, I want to make that a little bit brighter, especially the top of this selection. And so I'll choose a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to pull up, brightens up the whole selection. I'm going to reselect. I've got my gradient tool selected, pull down from the top, and you get a little bit of a gradient. So here's the before, here's the after. Let me deselect. And so again, here's the before for this image in Photoshop. Here's the after. Let's take one more image I did, which is this one. And this is kind of the finished product, but let me get rid of some of these layers. Let me disable this mask. Why don't I just delete this layer mask, and I'll start from scratch again. So I can right click on it, hit delete layer mask. So I really started with two images. This one, I like the way the building looked. I like the way the sun was hitting that grid part of the building and lightening it up a little bit. The other image though, I like the sky better. And so I want to use the sky from one and the building from another. Really straightforward. I'm going to create a layer mask on this second layer. I'm going to select the sky, and I made this selection already using the polygonal lasso tool. Relatively easy. I called it sky. And I simply want to turn this to black. That will conceal what is showing in this layer and reveal what's going on down below, which is exactly what I want. So I can go edit, fill, black. And easy as that, right? The sky from beneath is now showing. I can deselect the sky by hitting Command D. I did a bunch of other things. One thing I did was brighten up the building. So quickly I can reselect that sky. And I never did a selection of the building, but I don't have to, right? It's just everything but the sky. So I can go to select inverse, and now I've got the building. I'll use a curves adjustment layer and pull up to brighten it up. Get some of these shadows up as well. And so you can see the before, pretty dark, the after. You get a lot more detail in there. I also darkened the sky and added some contrast. Let's do that really quickly. Choose sky again. Again, using a curves adjustment layer. I will pull down on the left side, pull down those shadows and brighten up some of those highlights a bit. And you get that nice drama. You really see those streaking clouds are much more pronounced. Last thing I did was I wanted that red part of the building to be a little redder, a little more saturated. There's a lot of ways of doing that. One thing I did was, and I tried several ways by the way, but let's choose that part of the building. Again, I made that selection using the polygonal lasso tool. Let's do a solid color curves adjustment layer. And I'm going to choose the color I want, something kind of rusty. I'm not going to go too crazy here, but just to give you a sense, maybe need a little bit more orange in there. Let's choose that. Hit OK. That's obviously not acceptable. We need to change the blending mode. If we go down to color, bam, it changes the color. That's a little bit too much, and so let's reduce the opacity a bit. And something like that. Again, I played with it quite a bit, but there's the before, there's the after. So you get this image now which has great drama with the cloud movement, with the contrast, and with the color. To me, quite appealing. Hey, if you like this video and you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And until next time.